I want to talk to you guys about something that's come up in the comments a few times, and it's honestly something I've been looking to get into for quite a while. The U.S. government ran a psychic spy program for 23 years with $20 million of taxpayer money. The Stanford Research Institute, the CIA, the DIA, the Army, all of them were involved at different points. And most people know about all that if they're into this kind of stuff, but what most people don't really look into is what they actually found. The program was called Project Stargate, and it ran from 1972 to 1995. And when it was shut down, they declassified everything, all the documents. They're all available on the CIA's website for your viewing pleasure. There's thousands of pages, session transcripts, evaluation reports, experimental protocols, it's all there. The way it worked is that we'd give a viewer a set of coordinates, just numbers, no photo, no description, no context whatsoever. And the viewer would just sit down and describe what they perceived at that location. Then analysts would compare what they described against the actual target afterward. And that's it. That's the whole protocol. The two physicists who designed the experiments at Stanford were Russell Targ and Hal Puthoff. Targ invented the laser rangefinder, and Puthoff worked on government research across multiple projects. These were big-time scientists that took this question seriously enough to design a whole controlled experiment around it. The whole thing started because the U.S. found out the Soviets were doing it. The same Cold War logic as always. Missile gap, space gap, now psychic gap. The CIA wanted to know if it was real and whether it could be weaponized. One of the cases that stands out for me is in 1973, a man named Ingo Swann. He was the program's primary subject and eventually the guy who developed the whole training protocol. He proposed a test that nobody asked him to come up with. He said, let me remote view Jupiter before Pioneer 10 gets there, before the spacecraft actually reaches the planet. He wanted strict controls, nothing given to him about what Pioneer 10 might find, and then he sits down and describes Jupiter. Swann described a faint ring encircling Jupiter, but Jupiter wasn't known to have a ring at that time. Nobody on Earth had ever detected one. It wasn't in any scientific literature, so it wasn't expected. Pioneer 10 confirmed the ring when it got there. I don't know how to explain that, and nobody has a great explanation for it. Swann described something that didn't exist in any available information, that couldn't have been guessed from any known data, and it turned out to be real. And then there's Pat Price, a former police officer. They gave him geographic coordinates and nothing else, and he described a secret Soviet research facility. Price described a gantry crane running on tracks and a large metal sphere being assembled at a classified Soviet installation at Semipalatinsk. I think that's how you say that. And later, satellite imagery confirmed the crane and the structures. He drew sketches and described the layout from coordinates on a piece of paper. And then there's Joseph McMoneagle. They designated him Agent 001. He was the most operationally used viewer in the whole program. He described a new class of Soviet ballistic missile submarine under construction at a hidden facility, months before satellite imagery confirmed it even existed. Those are just the ones that made it into the record, the ones that analysts confirmed against actual intelligence, but there were several other cases just like this. When the CIA shut the program down in 1995, they commissioned an independent evaluation. The American Institute for Research looked at everything and came back with two conclusions. One is remote viewing has not been proven to work as a reliable intelligence tool. And two, some anomalous results had occurred that couldn't be fully explained. The CIA used the first conclusion to shut down the program. The second conclusion got almost no attention. And both Targ and Puthoff, the physicists who ran the experiments, maintained until their deaths that the anomalous results were real. That something was happening that the scientific establishment refused to engage with seriously because it didn't fit what was widely accepted. And that's so sad. How much farther along could we be if we just opened our minds and at least explore the possibility? Don't just instantly dismiss it because there's no scientific basis for why it could be possible. It could be something we haven't discovered yet, and we never will if the scientific community refuses to widen the net a little bit. With that being said, the program was operationally useless at scale. The accuracy just wasn't consistent enough to build reliable intelligence operations around. But Ingo Swann did describe Jupiter's ring before Pioneer 10 confirmed it. Whether it worked as a spy tool or not isn't what's important to me. It's what the results that did work are telling us about what human consciousness actually is. Because if a human mind can accurately perceive a location it has no physical connection to, and the Jupiter case is the closest thing of proof that we have to that, then consciousness isn't confined to the brain or the body the way we always assumed. It's operating somewhere outside the physical limits that we've assigned to it. Van Lommel spent years studying people who came back from cardiac arrest with detailed memories of things that happened while their brains showed zero measurable activity. His conclusion is almost the same as the remote viewing data keeps pointing to. The mind and the brain aren't the same thing. The brain might be the receiver, but not the source. And remote viewing fits that mold almost exactly. Someone receives coordinates and perceives something real at a location the body never visited. It's not magic, it's just consciousness doing something we don't completely understand yet. There's something about the inconsistency that kind of bothers me, though. Swann can do it, consistently enough that the government kept working with him for years. Most of the people they tested couldn't. Some could occasionally, but most couldn't reliably. That pattern also looks like a genetic trait, something that expresses strongly in some people and weakly or not at all in others. The same way perfect pitch shows up in a small percentage of the population, or the way certain people metabolize food differently. You can't train someone in the perfect pitch if you don't have the underlying wiring, but you can refine it if they do. What if that's what the CIA was actually dealing with? It wasn't a psychic phenomenon, it was a cognitive ability that exists in our human genome. Unevenly distributed, difficult to train, impossibly to fully control, but real in the people who have the right expression of it. We have 3,171 sequences of DNA that rewrote themselves only in humans in the genes controlling brain development and cognitive function. No other primate has them. No clean evolutionary explanation for why they changed so fast. And they gave us capabilities nothing else on this planet has. What if remote viewing was one of them, and the CIA spent 23 years and $20 million accidentally documenting that, without ever understanding what they were actually measuring? I don't really care if the program worked. I care more about what the capability is actually for and who put it there. The program ended officially in 1995, but the people didn't stop. McMonagle continued working as a remote viewer privately and has been tested under controlled conditions multiple times since then. His results have been documented consistently enough that serious researchers still work with him. Swann wrote extensively about what he believed was being concealed about consciousness and non-human intelligence before he died, and his books are still in print. I'll link those in the description. And Russia never stopped their program. Psychotronics research, their version of Stargate, continued through the Soviet collapse and into the modern Russian state. The U.S. closed its program citing lack of operational utility at scale. Russia decided whatever they were finding was worth continuing. The declassified documents are on the CIA's website, all of them, thousands of pages, the raw session transcripts, the evaluation reports, the experimental protocols. What the data shows is that on at least some occasions, under controlled conditions, specific human beings accurately perceived information about locations that they had no physical connection to. One of them described a ring around Jupiter before anyone on the planet knew it existed, and the government classified that for 23 years. Make of that what you will. If remote viewing is a real cognitive capability that's built into human DNA, what do you think it was originally designed to do? I don't think it would have originally been designed to view secret Soviet military installations, but who knows? And one of the cool things about remote viewing is I think it could be taught to anyone. I believe it was McMonagle who was on a podcast that said that he teaches this skill to people, that it's not inherited. Everyone has the ability to do it. You just have to learn how to unlock the ability to do it. I don't know about you, but I'm not sure I would want that ability. I mean, what would your life look like if this was every day? You get to see crazy stuff that you knew was out there that no one else did, and you had to just keep everything secret. I'm not sure I can live with that because I'd be telling you all about it on YouTube. I'm still looking pretty deep into this remote viewing thing. I just wanted to get this one out there because I did see some comments around these latest consciousness videos and things like that that kind of alluded to remote viewing being tied into all this. So I started doing some initial digging, and it's very interesting stuff. As always, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate you watching. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe, like, comment on this video. I'd love to hear what you think about remote viewing in general. Do you think it's real? Do you think it's fake? I'm not sure which way I'm leaning right now. I do think there's something to it, though. But until next time, I'll talk to you later.